We have Art, pronouns are he, him, in Pennsylvania, who is a deist and has what he considers to be strong proof that Jesus is not God. So welcome, Art.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, can I take a little detour? The Catholic Church for over 1,000 years in canon law had fetus animus and fetus inanimus. Fetus inanimus was a fetus without a human soul. It was the teaching of the Catholic Church for over 1,000 years that the soul, the human soul, enters the body about 90 days after conception. That's just an aside. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, but it's not relevant to anything because even whether it's true or not, it's just another religious opinion and it doesn't change bodily autonomy. So what have you got?
Okay. Okay, here's what I've got.
Yeah, put a minute on the clock. Prove that Jesus isn't God.
Okay, very good. Supposedly Jesus came to give us the way of salvation, not salvation. If he'd come to give us salvation and he succeeded, we'd all be saved. He came to give us the way of salvation. He failed. He failed because I was raised as a Catholic and I was told the way to get to heaven, Catholic baptism, die without mortal sins. There are Baptists that say Catholic and Mormons are not saved. I heard a preacher on the radio once say, if you're not baptized by immersion, you're not saved. So basically, if I was convinced that hell existed and I wanted to be saved, Jesus failed me. I would have to say, well, gosh, should I go back to Catholicism? That's where I was born in. But if I do that and the Baptists are right and Mormons and Catholics are not saved, I've made the wrong choice, I go to hell. If I join the Baptists and the Catholics are right, I've made the wrong choice and I go to hell. He did not bring us a way of salvation. He brought us a muddle. There's probably 10 or 20 different ways of salvation if you survey all the Christian sects. That means he failed to bring us the way of salvation. Now, if he's God and he came to bring us the way of salvation and he failed, then he's not God. I mean, God wouldn't fail. God wouldn't say, gee, I'm going to try this. Now, a lot of people say, oh, it's because of human blah, blah, blah. You know, we're so whatever. That does not matter. Inventing a reason why he failed does not change the fact that he failed. So, again, I'll just finish with the restatement. If I was convinced of hell and I wanted to go to heaven, I wanted to avoid hell, Christianity gives me 3 or 4 or 5 ways, which means it gives me no way. Because if I make the wrong choice and the other denominations are correct, bingo, I'm frying. And
so the problem is this is all based on some assumptions on your part that you can't prove. So whether or not Jesus was God, you know, your entire case against Jesus being God is predicated on suppositions that he came to give us a way of salvation. I don't know how you reach that conclusion. That's hang on, I'm talking.
Yeah,
I don't know how you reach that conclusion because while that is doctrinally what some versions of Christianity say, you have no way of no justification for assuming that any of those are going to be correct. And so, you know, while there's no reason to think that Jesus is God, the proposition is essentially unfalsifiable. So you can't prove Jesus isn't God. All you can prove is that there are inconsistencies within the various doctrines of Christianity.
Well, okay, first of all, you're right that Christianity is very varied. But if someone believes that the mission of Jesus was to bring us the means of salvation, if someone believes that, then I think it follows. What?
No, sir, you don't get to go with what if somebody believed that the mission of Jesus was to make Pez dispensers available to everybody? And because they're not available to everybody, Jesus isn't God. You begin with a flawed assumption. The entire case is the entire case is as much of a waste of time as Christianity is.
Well, okay. I thought this would be useful if someone was talking to someone who believed that, which many Christians do, that Jesus came to show us the way of salvation. For them, it should be convincing that he failed and therefore he can't be God. Now,
no, because your
only
reason
convincing
that he
if you
failed,
make the assumptions you've made, Art.
I mean, you literally said he failed because you were raised Catholic. Right. Well, I was raised Southern Baptist, and I was taught that Catholicism is a Mary worshiping cult. But if you'd asked me, when I was a Southern Baptist, if you'd asked me, did Jesus fail? No, I have the plan of salvation, and I'm convinced that it's the case. I don't know what we're getting at, but I
Your
mean,
argument's no better than Matt's, Art. The bigger question is not was Jesus God, is you can't even prove God. So you're coming on the show saying you can prove that Jesus wasn't God. We're
Well,
saying first prove God, and then we'll talk about Jesus, because all of that's irrelevant.
I agree. What I should have said, I guess, is if someone believes that Jesus came to show us the way of salvation, that person, by my logic, I think will have to admit that Jesus isn't God, because he didn't accomplish.
no, they wouldn't.
They did.
I just literally explained to you. I used to believe that, and by your reasoning, I would not have admitted that Jesus isn't God. I would have admitted that you were raised in a Mary worshiping cult that didn't have good doctrine.
Using your logic, Art, you and Matt could go. I was raised, but I lived as a charismatic evangelical who believed if you didn't have the fullness of the Holy Spirit, neither you nor Matt were right with God. So we've got three different arguments about which version of Christianity is the most correct, or which view of God is the most correct, or which view of Jesus is the most correct. And the point is, none of them are, because none of us can prove anything about what we assert. It's just assertions without evidence. And yours is no better than what Matt would have said as a Baptist, or I would have said as a charismatic Pentecostal believing Christian.
I will say
different opinions.
I agree with you that Christianity has not succeeded in what many people believe that it's for.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't prove that Jesus isn't God. It doesn't prove that there isn't a God. And no offense to you, Art, but you're identified here as a deist. And so you already believe in a God that is completely unverifiable, which makes me question your reasoning skills at all.
Well, let me interrupt you a second. I said I was like a deist because I didn't want to pick theist or atheist. I could tell you what I believe and why, but that would be a whole other call. So I'm not a deist. But
so you're not a deist. You just didn't want to say whether or not you were a theist. Well, why are you lying?
No. I believe that theist and atheist, I know what you're going to say about this. I believe theist and atheist, there's a third option. Because
no, there's not.
Person God. Well,
there's not a third option. You either are convinced there is a God, or you are not convinced that there's a God. There's no option. There's no third option between being convinced and not being convinced.
The reason why I say it is the third option is the definition of a theist, I believe, is someone who believes in a God who is a person. Like, for instance,
no, a theist is someone who believes in a God.
Period.
Okay, so is a Taoist a theist? Is the Tao
a Taoist may or may not be a theist, depending on whether or not they believe there's a God. But you listed deist, and you listed deist, and now you say you're not a deist, which means you lied.
No, what I told the call screener was I was like.
Are you a deist?
No.
Why does it say deist next to your name?
Because you didn't have a choice, because I didn't want to choose theist or atheist.
I'm sorry, if you're not interested in actually discussing this honestly, how does that differentiate you from lying about being a deist?
It's like saying, have you stopped beating your wife?
It's not at all like that.
No.
It's simply saying, are you convinced that a God exists, period? Are you convinced that a God exists? Because the answer is yes, you're a theist.
Yes.
And if the answer is no, you are not a theist.
Okay, here we go. I believe that the ultimate ground of existence is God. Now, I do not believe the ultimate ground of existence is a person. Now, so I don't think that qualifies as theist. But since I believe the ultimate ground of existence is God, I don't believe that qualifies as atheist. So if you want to label me one or the other.
I'm sorry that you are incredibly confused about this, but I don't know what you mean by the ultimate ground of existence is God, because I don't know what you mean by ultimate ground of existence, and I don't know how you're defining a God.
You're right. And
so if you believe the ultimate ground of existence is God, then you believe there's a God, which means you're a theist.
Not a person.
I don't give a shit.
Okay, let me ask you this, Matt. Let me ask you this. if I was, no, I'm not, if I'm not this person, but if I was a person who believed God was love, that God was the love that people feel for each other, would that make me a theist?
No, it would make you delusional. It would make you
No.
It would make you a theist in the sense that you believe there's a God that you also don't define according to any normative definition at all. But why are you raising what other people believe when we're talking about what you believe? You said you believe the ultimate ground of existence is God. What does that mean?
Right. Okay, I will tell you. There's 3 steps. First of all, what do I mean by ultimate ground of existence? Secondly, does that concept refer to anything real? And then thirdly, if it refers to something real, why would I call that real thing God? So those are 3 steps. Would you like to, should you want me to start at the beginning or go to number 3? That's up to you.
I don't know what you mean by ground of existence.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know how
not
much
being
more clear I can be.
Okay,
you're not being clear,
no,
Art.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. Okay.
Stop telling me you're going to tell me and fucking tell me. I don't need preamble. I've got a show here with 9 other people waiting to talk. I don't need preamble.
Got it. We have a table. The table's existence is grounded in the wood. If the wood didn't exist, the table couldn't exist. But the wood can exist without the table existing. The wood's existence is grounded in wood molecules. Wood molecules' existence is grounded.
There's no such thing as a wood molecule.
Yeah, I know. It's grounded in. You're right. It's grounded in molecules. The molecules are grounded in protons, neutrons, or electrons, which are grounded in quarks. I am stipulating there's an ultimate ground of existence.
What evidence do you have for anything beyond quarks?
I'm telling you what I believe. You asked me what I believe.
I know you, Art.
Okay.
The purpose of this show, shut up. The purpose of this show is for people to explain what they believe and why. You told me what you believe, and now I'm asking you why you believe there's something beyond quarks. What evidence do you have for that position?
Obviously, if I had evidence that was
thanks for nothing, Art. We're moving on.
All right.
You have an idea, you have a belief, but you have no substance beyond that, and you cannot admit that you don't have any substance beyond what you believe. There's no evidence. We can see the wood, we can see the table made of wood, we can see where the wood comes from. We can go chop a tree down and actually make a table from wood. But you have nothing beyond what you want to believe about a God, and you just should admit it, Art. He's gone, I know, but
yeah,
you should just admit it. I don't have evidence.
Is you say, oh, well, a table is grounded in wood. No, that is a linguistic.
A table is made of wood. It's not grounded in wood. What the hell?
We made a table out of wood. A table could be grounded in steel or any number of other things, but it's basically you're saying a table is made of wood. Wood is made of this.
People would be honest and say, you know what? I want to believe there's something beyond what we see. I don't have any evidence for that, but it's what I want to believe. That is an honest answer.
Yes. I need some explanation for what is it that serves as a foundation for quarks? Maybe there is a foundation for quarks and we just don't know it yet. Maybe there's not. But when I ask, what's your reason for believing that? And you're like, well, if I had any actual physical evidence, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, you called in to prove that Jesus wasn't God. So you called in to prove the unfalsifiable. And then you claim that you're a deist because you don't want to admit that you don't have any grounds for your deism or theism. And you don't want to identify as an atheist because you're incredibly confused about the foundation.
I know lots of people who just want to believe in a God. I've got family members. They just want to believe there's something more. There's something bigger than me. There's no evidence for it. And when backed into a corner, just be honest and say, I don't have evidence. It's just what makes me feel good.
It's really wild. Yeah.
Okay.